Hello chess friends, how are you? Hope you are good, and today I will teach you some opening traps of Ruy Lopez and Sicilian defense. I played these opening traps in online matches with my subscribers and defeat them. You can note down my opening traps, and this is your today's puzzle, 100 IQ chess puzzle. Solve it and comment me. So let's go. The first trap I have for you with black pieces, e4 e5 knight f3, and we have this Ruy Lopez opening, knight f6 as usual, and many players love to play d3 here. Then retreat your knight on e7 square, this sacrificing a pawn on e5. If your opponent accept it, then play c6 to target the bishop. If bishop c4 happen, then play queen a5 check with the targeting of the knight. White loses his knight and he decided to resign the game. That's a nice trap with black pieces. And there is another trap that white can use the trap, the same variation, the same opening. Let me show you with the first move, the exact same variation. In bullet or blitz chess it's totally worthable. Knight e7 to sacrifice his pawn, which white accepts it, c6 to target bishop. There is another move that white can consider. Instead of playing bishop c4, white can play knight c4, and if he takes it, then knight d7 check will be a mate, ha ha ha. So move to our next trap of Ruy Lopez. It is with black pieces, the most popular variation of Ruy. Here we will play knight g4, and black's idea is simple. Play h5 if needed, a6, if white tries to kick out the knight with h3, then we will simply push the h-pawn, and after takes pawn takes, this will target to the knight, so if you move back your knight, then queen h4 move will be a killer move, f4 g3, and the checkmate is unstoppable. There is no way to stop black. If knight here, then queen h1 checkmate will happen. So, back to the opening, it's the next game, the same opening, but we will see the solid line variation. Knight here, bishop to b5 a6, bishop a4, knight f6 castle, and bishop e7 by black. Magnus loves to play this move. Then we will play queen e2 b5 bishop b3, d6 and a4. If your opponent plays bishop g4, which is the best move, then play normally. There will be no trap. You have to play positionally with tactics and patience. And here, if your opponent plays b4, which my opponent did in our game, he is my new subscriber, he don't know anything about chess trap and tactic, then queen c4, this targets to the knight and the pawn, so queen d7 to protect the knight and creating breathing room for the king. Queen takes check, here and takes, you will win 2 pawns and you have great advantages. White is completely winning here. Play d4 bishop to g5 rook e1, if pawn takes happen, then push the pawn. Black's king is insecure and he will lose the game. My opponent loses all the pieces and he resigned the game. Let's move into our next trap of Sicilian defense. Started with e4 c5 knight to f3 and d6. We will play c3 with the idea to gain center where the queen is ready to disturb the king. I mean queen gets a open diagonal, and after pawn takes, knight will arrive on there and the rook will get the open file, knight f6, and we will play bishop e2, sacrificing the pawn. If your opponent takes it, then queen a4 check will come and you will lose the knight on e4, that's not fair. So, here black plays knight c6, d4 takes, and again if your opponent plays knight takes e4, then simply push the pawn. If you dare to save the knight with knight e5, then the same trap will come, queen a4 check, and you will lose the knight. So, back to the position, black plays queen to a5 check, knight here, knight takes, knight e5, and that's it. Take the knight, move the rook on b1, white have pieces activity, black pieces, pawns, and the king is restricted. It will not bring anything good for black, so, that's a very good opening trap that you can play in your game rather than playing abnormal openings. Next trap is the Sicilian defense, e4 c5 knight to f3 d6 c3, the same opening, but here we will play d4. If your opponent plays bishop g4 to pin the knight, then play d5, knight e5. It looks like the knight have a miserable life, but he can take the knight on e5, sacrificing the queen on d1. After bishop takes, bishop e5 check will be a devastating for you. Queen blocks, then bishop takes check, king here, takes bishop back to h3, and now count the pieces. White have an extra piece and he is going to win the game. It was an amazing trap. By sacrificing the queen to win up an extra piece at the end of the game. The next trap I have for you, started with e4 c5 knight f3 knight to c6, it's a very popular opening. We will play d4, takes, knight takes, g6, Bishop Funetto in the king's side. Okay, knight c3, bishop g7, bishop e3 to protect the knight. White's plan is to move up the queen to castle in the queen's side, and then push the king's side pawns to start's attack to black king in the king's side. White will play knight b3 as a guard of his pawn structure, and the king position. Black may push the queenside pawns, that's why knight b3 was important. Knight f6, bishop c4, castle, bishop b3. Bishop b3 is an interesting move, because after knight a5, it may looks like usual position, but there is a trap started with e5. The knight have no good squares to run. If the knight retreats on the e8 square, then we will capture the a7 pawn, sacrificing the bishop. Rooks or king takes. If rook takes f7 happen, then knight e6 will trap the queen. The queen have no square to go and pawn can't take it because of this, so if you play king takes f7, then the knight will come to the e6 square anyway to trap the queen on d8. How do you protect the queen? If you take the knight with king, then queen d5 check will come, king here g4, the king have no square to return his home, so king have to fight alone. Rook check, king cannot go there because of this, it will be a checkmate, so if the king move to the h4 square, then bishop g5 check will come, rook is there, so king h5, queen d5, check and mate. These are few traps that you can use in your game. If the video gets more views and comments, then I will make another episode about it, so like and share the video. Wish you all the best, thanks for watching, subscribe for more, bye bye, take care, see you soon.